Chapter 5. The two spiders crept toward the village, being careful to hide behind shrubs or rocks or even flowers so as not to be seen. In order to get into the snow structure, they would have to go through 2 streets of the village, passing by several houses along the way. When they got to the wall of the first house, they hid amongst a flowering hedge. "It's going to be harder than I thought to get there without being seen," Jake said. "I know. I was wondering if we should try to get there by jumping between the tops of the houses." Jake shook his head and his abdomen twitched. "That'll never work. The gap between each house is too wide. It's better just to sneak around." "Yeah, now that I think about it, you're right." "Booyah! Younger brother schools his older sister." "You'd better shut up, or I'll be schooling you." Jane shook one of her legs at him in a threatening gesture. "You're only 2 months older than me. You're not so tough." Jane rolled all 8 of her eyes. "Whatever. Come on." Jane led the way round the back of the house, and then they turned the corner. Several villagers were wandering by. She watched cautiously. It took a few minutes for the area to become clear. When it did, Jane darted forward to the next house, hiding behind a patch of tulips. Jake joined her a few seconds later. "We don't have much cover here," he said. "I know. The snow house is just a few steps away." Jake looked. His sister was right. The door of the snow house was only 10 blocks away. Unfortunately, since the Notchmas holiday was only 2 days away, dozens of villagers were standing near the snow house, admiring it. "We'll never get in there without someone seeing us," Jake said, pouting. Jane thought about the problem for a minute and then grinned. "You stay here. When you see all the villagers leave, run into the snow house. I'll join you soon thereafter." "What are you going to do?" Jake asked, his voice shaking a little bit. "Well, I'm going to school you." "I'm going to school you." Jane skittered away. It didn't take long before Jake heard villagers raising the alarm. "There's a giant spider in the village. Hide your kids. Hide your wife." "Don't worry about it," Jake heard a young villager say. "Spiders are passive during the daytime. Just leave it alone." "You don't know anything, little boy. They are disgusting. We need to chase that hideous thing out of here." Jane's plan worked. All the villagers near the snow house rushed to the aid of the other villagers, intent on shooing away the spider. Now that all the villagers were preoccupied elsewhere, Jake darted into the snow house and hid in a dark corner. He didn't even bother to look around because he was so worried about his sister. A few minutes later, though, he heard the skittering of spider feet and emerged from his hiding place. "You did it." Jane looked cool and confident. "Of course I did. Villagers are so predictable." Jake was now able to observe the interior of the snow house without worrying about his sister. To his surprise, the interior of the snow house was rather boring. The structure was rectangular. All the walls were smooth snow. Each wall had one torch affixed to its center. On the floor in the exact center of the snow house, there was a small pile of snowballs. Jake was confused. "This is too boring in here. The outside is way cooler." "Yeah, you're right. Maybe it wasn't worth the risk coming in here." At that moment, they heard footsteps. The 2 spiders were too far from a corner of the structure, and so they ducked behind a pile of snowballs, hoping it would be enough to conceal them. They heard the footsteps enter the snow house for a few steps. Then, they heard the timid voice of a young villager. "Spider? Are you in here?" "What shall we do?" Jake whispered to his sister. "Is it a little boy? It sounds like a little kid." "Wait till he comes in a little further, and then we will run past." The 2 spiders waited. They heard the child's footsteps approaching the pile of snowballs. "Spider, I saw you go in here. Where are you?" "So, he's getting closer." There. The footsteps came closer to the snowballs, and then a small boy appeared in front of the spiders. "Walk it, whoa!" "Oh, there you are. I knew you came in here. And there are two of you?" Jane turned to her brother. "Run." The two spiders skittered away. "Wait!" the young villager cried. "I just want to talk to you for a minute." The two spiders stopped and turned around. They looked at the boy. The boy smiled and then sighed. "I mean, I know you don't really understand what I'm saying. I just wanted to see you up close. I think spiders are cool, despite what all my friends say. Everyone says you guys are gross and icky and hideous, but I think you're interesting." Contrary to what the boy said, the spiders could understand him. However, they couldn't speak back to him in his villager language. They only spoke spider-ese. Jake looked at his sister. Icky, gross, hideous, humph. How icky would it be to only have 2 legs? Obliged, I rolled over and watched my sister hide them in her eyes. Jane chuckled. "Spin around, show your hideousness, give this kid the full treatment." The 2 spiders spun around. The boy clapped. "Cool!" The boy giggled with glee. "I want my mum to give me a spider for Notchmas, but she thinks they are gross. Besides, we don't have very much money." 2 spiders had mixed emotions about the boy's words. On the one hand, they thought the idea of a villager enslaving one of their kind as a pet to be reprehensible. On the other hand, they were happy that at least one villager thought they were a cool mob. Jane and Jake hopped up and down their legs and did a couple of flips. Then they shot webs into the corner of the snow house. Every time they performed a trick, the boy clapped. Unfortunately, that's when a couple of adult villagers wandered into the snow house. "The spiders are attacking a child. Get them!" Jake and Jane each ran in opposite directions. One villager pursued each of them, trying to kick at them. But the villagers were too slow and clumsy. "Don't!" the child villager shouted. "They're passive!" The spiders ran around the 2 adult villagers and then out the front door of the snow house. A dozen more villagers spotted them and ran after them, but they were too slow. Jake and Jane ran out of the village into the forest. Once the villagers saw the spiders were gone, they returned to their normal tasks. "Stupid villagers," Jake said. "Whatever, we knew this might happen. Come on, let's go up in a tree and watch the village a little longer. Maybe something cool will happen."